This is the Ground Zero, and today, Sir Nhoie will present his humble viewpoint regarding the societal focus Res Ipsa Loquitur. Before anything else, let us first tackle the taxonomy and etiology of this Latin phrase. Res ipsa loquitur is a phrase which literally translates to the thing speaks for itself. That is the English translation. Oftentimes, there is an understatement of this word thing because it is not given much attention. But if we will substitute this word to evidence, it will bear better conscious ideation. Now, res ipsa loquitur as a principle is based upon the reality that circumstantial evidence may be sufficient in the inquiry or the act presented would not normally occur if not for the negligence or the wrongdoing that is proven to have happened in the first place. Often, in a certain system, there are always four assumptions when something happens. Of course, all of these four assumptions will always have a doer and a done circumstance. In the first circumstance, the doer accepts the done circumstance. Therefore, there is no problem here. In the second circumstance, the doer does not accept and there was no done circumstance. Therefore, this is as good as non-existent, for there are no evidences in place or no proofs to dwell with. The third instance, the doer denies but there was a done circumstance. A good example of this is the doer is the only person at home, then plates were broken and food were consumed. So even if the doer denies the circumstance, the proof of the circumstance occurring, which were the broken plates and the consumed foods, will be enough reason to logically point out that the denying doer is actually the one who committed the act. This is res ipsa loquitur. The fourth instance happened when the doer admits a circumstance but there was no done circumstance. Often this happens when the done circumstance was already fixed or the proof was already distorted. Even if the circumstance that was done is correct or had happened, it can never be proven already. So if you will really scrutinize here, the third circumstance is the best example of res ipsa loquitur. To simplify matters, the logic of things that are done with only one logical person qualified of doing it because he is nearest to it is the safest qualification of res ipsa loquitur. That is why in some crime scenes, the person holding the knife in the crime area of stabbing is always considered the primary suspect using the principle of res ipsa loquitur. Why? Because the person holding the knife might deny, but the presence of the weapon with blood around it is too much to neglect in terms of appreciating the evidences at hand. Now let us focus to systematic and systemic application such as management and leadership. Often leaders will deny that they are failures, but the presence of phalanx of failures in the system provides a tangible evidence that there was really failure in the management of such leader. Thus, res ipsa loquitur is a dangerous logic when focused on the leader that faces a lot of uncontrolled failures in the system he or she is leading. Sometimes, in leadership, the tendency to accept incapacity is the best way to avoid res ipsa loquitur, or the tendency of leaving an evidence of one's own incapacity. Well, to point out one very common example in professional systems, one person who wanted to prove his leadership traits, his leadership capacities, and his leadership versatilities, but in reality, there is really nothing inside to prove, just a high-octane pride and projection of non-occurring knowledge, often result into failure or even professional destruction. Then if you noticed, this will be cornered with facade to defend something which is obviously wrong already just to limit the crushing effect of such an unavoidable situation to escalate. 2 points here should be emphasized. First, there should be an admission of one's capacity and limitation, may it be in the academic or technical areas of professionalism. The tendencies of hiding the insufficiencies in these areas will always result into silent but unavoidable destruction of the system. Now, when the system is destroyed, it is impossible that no one caused the destruction, and this is the greatest responsibility that one has to face, being the cause of the executed damage. Second point to emphasize here is, simple honesty can always save lives and in general can hold the fort of the system against crumbling. Often, because of pride, pretensions, and prejudice, people are forced to mask a null cerebral content with fake intelligence, putting the system into dire hazard for personal gain and individual prestige, and at times just to jumpstart a personal selfish desire. They might forget that when something happened, it is on their watch and on the point of their own decision, then that will still be under the principle of res ipsa loquitur, or the evidence of what transpired speaks for itself or prove itself. While at some points, pride, pretensions, and prejudice should be given up, especially when we are talking about organizational health and sustainability. Often, the supreme sacrifice of self in tendencies where we know that giving up is better than gambling down will always be remembered as an act of truthfulness and unparalleled heroism. Let us not misinterpret acceptance of limitations as cowardice, because unfounded strength and uneducated guts will always be the greatest assurance of nominal failure. Well, isn't it that when you can see kind leaders, you will also equate it with a kind system? Isn't it that when you will see honest leaders, you will also equate with an honest system? Isn't it that when you will see a system with morally competent personnel, you will also equate it with a system founded in moral ascendancy? On the contrary, isn't it that when you will see proud and baseless individuals strangling the system, you will also equate the system as foundationally questionable? Isn't it that when you will see a system of which some of its complementary composition have records of graft and other corruptible practices, the system itself will have an impression of dishonesty? This is the greatest reason why every system should embrace the principle of res ipsa loquitur, because the humans within the system cannot be disconnected from the impression and moral reputation of the whole system in place. Today, how many of us appreciate our leaders for frankly telling us their fears, their honest areas of limitations, and their proven incompetence in some areas of service? How many of us can salute our system managers for bravely accepting their faults at times? Isn't it that these persons should be trusted more, should be honored more, and should be modeled more, rather than people who have difficulty committing error in the way they want to persistently let the public perceive them as individuals with ranks? Let us not forget the Latin principle res ipsa loquitur, which is directly translated in English as the evidence speaks for itself, which is a principle that we may fear if we are not accustomed to doing what is right. Further, it is a principle that will always haunt us if we are pretending to know that we know, but actually we know what we know, that we really don't know what we are doing. Well, you have the conscience to live with. Question is your conscience really that pretending if your pride, pretensions, and prejudice cause a working system to fail? Can you fathom this in your conscience? If not, it's time to do what is right so that the system we are included with will also turn out to be a system in the right direction. This is the Ground Zero, and our societal topic recently tackled is the res Ipsa Loquitur principle. This is the viewpoint of Sir Nhoie. Until the next focus will cause us to reach the ground zero. Have a clear and logical life to all.